charter schools. In 17 states, reformed teacher evaluation systems by including, among other things, student achievement. I've learned many, many things since I came to Washington, but I have to admit I was actually a little surprised to learn that we had states that had laws prohibiting the use of student achievement in teacher evaluation. They had laws on the books against that. Because of Race to the Top, those laws in states are all gone. Best of all, these bold blueprints for reform bear the signatures of many, many key players at the state and local level that drive change in our schools. The winners of Race to the Top will be held accountable for those commitments. But every single state, every state that applied, will benefit from this consensus-building process to drive reform. Much of the federal dollars we distribute through other channels can support their plans to raise standards, to improve teaching, to use data more effectively, to support student learning, and to turn around chronically underperforming schools. 2 states, Delaware and Tennessee, won grants in the first phase of Race to the Top. Here today representing Governor Jack Markell from Delaware and Governor Phil Predesen from Tennessee are their visionary chief state school officers, Dr. Lillian Lowry of Delaware and Dr. Tim Webb of Tennessee. If I could please ask them to stand. Let's give them a round of applause. Beside Tim here. We will also be distributing teacher incentive fund grants for districts willing to try new compensation programs that reward excellence in the classroom or provide incentives to teach in hard-to-staff schools and hard-to-staff subjects. The biggest single thing we can do is to get great teachers into struggling schools, whatever it takes, including incentive pay and other ideas. The committed leadership and dedicated staff. Go to Urban Prep in Chicago, an all-male, all-African-American high school. They're a place of school where only 4% of incoming freshmen were at grade level and approximately 60% of students historically were dropping out. They just had their first graduating class. 107 young men, 107 graduating, 107 going out to four-year universities. When we made the decision to transform that school, I received a call from a man named Don Stewart. Some of you may know him, former president of the Chicago Community Trust and the former president of Spelman College. And he told me that when he was going into high school, when he was in 8th grade, his mother would not let him attend that high school 50 years ago because that high school was so bad at that time. It took us half a century to have the courage to change and to create Urban Prep. There's simply no excuse for that. And I wonder how many Don Stewarts we lost over those 50 years because we failed to provide real educational opportunity. So there's also money for new charter schools and other innovative learning models, as well as funds for states to develop better data systems. Lastly, $350 million in Race to the Top funds are set aside for groups of states to develop new, more comprehensive assessments. All told, nearly $10 billion is going out in the coming weeks to support education reform driven at the local level, over and above the billions of dollars we distribute in formula grants to support low-income students and other special populations. It's been a remarkable year and a half, and among other things, I've learned much about the proper federal role in supporting education reform. And I think it comes down to a few basic things. The first is the bully pulpit. The President and I have both used the megaphone our position affords to challenge everyone in the system to get better, absolutely starting with ourselves and continuing with parents and students, educators, elected officials, and colleges of education. I've been to 37 states and literally hundreds and hundreds of schools. I've held large and small meetings with thousands of parents, teachers, students, and administrators. I've yet to meet one person who is satisfied with the status quo. Everybody knows that we have to get better. And I've tried to give voice to their concerns by telling the truth as I have heard it from people all across the country. The truth is, a quarter of our students do not graduate from high school. That's 1.2 million students dropping out of high school each year, and there are no good options, as you know, for them. That is morally unacceptable and economically unsustainable. The truth is, too many teachers are unprepared when they enter the classroom, and the system fails to identify and reward good teachers, support those with potential, or, when necessary, counsel out of the field those teachers who are just not suited for this challenging profession. The truth is, too many schools, including some charter schools, are simply not providing students with an education that prepares them for college and careers. And they need to change the way they do business, or they need to go out of business. The truth is, there are indefensible inequities in our school system in terms of funding, teacher quality, access to rigorous curriculum, and student outcomes. Half a century after Brown versus Board of Education, this is an epic injustice in our society. We will target these schools for enforcement under civil rights laws, but it falls on elected officials, school administrators, and other stakeholders across the spectrum to confront educational inequity. The achievement gap is unacceptable. Education is the civil rights issue of our generation. It's the only way to make good on the American promise of equality. And the truth is that states with low standards have been lying to children and families for years, telling them they are ready for college or for work, when in fact they're not even close. Many of those who attend college today need remedial education, and half of them drop out. Overall, just 40% of young people earn a 2-year or a 4-year college degree. The U.S. now ranks 10th in the world in the rate of college completion for 25 to 34-year-olds. We were first a generation ago, and we want to be first again. That's why we ended federal subsidies for banks and student lending programs and shifted billions and billions of dollars into increasing Pell Grants without going back to taxpayers for a dime. That's why we fixed the student financial aid application. It was so complicated that a lot of students simply gave up, and that's one more barrier to access that we have eliminated. We're competing with students from around the world, and the truth is, unfortunately, we're continuing to slip further behind. Among developed nations, our 8th graders trail students in 10 countries in science, and our 15-year-olds are in the bottom quartile in math. So, whatever else we do at the federal level, our first responsibility is simply to tell the truth. And that also gets to the second big lever of change, which is transparency. And I credit NCLB for exposing America's dirty laundry, but we need to go further and show what is and what is not working. The big game changer is to start measuring individual student growth rather than proficiency, which is in our blueprint for reauthorizing the Elementary and Secondary Act. We have to use that information to drive student instruction and accountability at every level: classroom, school, district, and state. If we know how much students are gaining each year, if we know how much they're improving, we will know which teachers and principals are succeeding, which ones need more help and support, and which ones simply are not getting the job done. We will also know if the best teachers are distributed equitably among schools, or whether the poorest kids in the most disadvantaged communities, who are the furthest behind, are consistently taught by the least experienced and the least effective teachers. If you go to any chronically low-performing school, I promise you that you'll find less experienced teachers and high teacher turnover. Go to any high-performing school, and you'll find the opposite: stability, a mixture of experience and youth, and a professional teaching culture. Too many states today are not built to measure growth, which is why we need better assessments and better data systems. We also need to look at a range of other indicators: graduation, college enrollment, and completion rates, to more innovative metrics like the rate of freshmen on track, which is a combination of attendance and grades, and that helped us attack the dropout rate back in Chicago. Another big lever of change is the one I mentioned before, and that is incentives like Race to the Top. Nothing moves people as quickly as the opportunity for more funding, especially in tough budget times like today. When I was in Chicago, our teachers designed a program for performance pay and secured a $27 million federal grant, the largest grant our school district had ever received. It would have taken us, frankly, years to bargain this program with our unions, but with a grant in hand, they signed on together with us in weeks. That program was created by teachers for teachers. In Chicago's model, every adult in the building, not just teachers, but clerks and janitors and social workers and cafeteria workers, all adults were rewarded when the school improved. It builds a sense of teamwork, and it gives the whole school a common mission. It can help to transform and support a positive school culture. Today, there are dozens and dozens of districts with performance pay programs. There are 100 more districts competing right now for our teacher incentive fund dollars. Educators all across this country want to get better, they want results, and they want the opportunity to try new approaches to learning. So, as we look at the last 18 months, It's absolutely stunning to see how much change has happened at the state and the local level because of these incentive programs. And that's why we're asking Congress to continue Race to the Top, I3, SIG, TIF,